Welcome back to Muppets in Space, a Farscape rewatch podcast on the Incomparable. Tonight we are covering Season 1, Episode 15, Durka Returns, and Episode 16, A Human Reaction. I'm your host, Eric Scott, and joining me, as always, is my fellow co-host, somebody who does not need any mental cleansing, Jason Johnson.
Yeah, as long as this place isn't just built from my memories, I think we're okay. It's not, right?
Well, since I'm about 1,200 miles away from you, if you do see me down there, then yes, it is memories. Otherwise, no.
Ah, Memorax, got it. Okay.
That's right. And we'll get into more of that later, I'm sure, as we both like these episodes, so we probably got a lot to talk about. All right, so let's jump into the recap for Season 1, Episode 13, Durka Returns. Moya's pregnancy has weakened her ability to starburst, so they're having a bit of a rough ride. When they do finally exit Starburst, they are right on top of a ship heading towards them, and because Moya's sensors are affected too, they don't realize that until the last second. They kind of bounce slash scrape off each other. Pilot brings the ship on board, and the crew go down to the docking bay to greet their new quote unquote friends that they ran into. A man steps out of the ship, and then Zan runs in saying that she's detected a massive energy weapon on board that ship, but the man says it's powered down as evidence of their peaceful intentions. He says that there are two others on board also, who are also unarmed. Rygel then hovers in, and when he hears that man's voice, he looks horrified and says he saw his corpse, and then spits on him. He says it's him, his former torturer, Durka. Aaron says no, that's not possible, since Durka died over 100 cycles ago. The man says, no, Rygel's actually right. He is Durka. Dun dun dun.
So the title is right.
That's right, he returns. Here he is. Rygel then goes to attack Durka again, but Crichton grabs him and holds him back. Aaron asks Durka why he's not dead of old age, when another passenger steps out of the ship and says that they saved him. His name is Salas of the Nebari. He says Durka poses no danger. He's now incapable of harm. Yeah, we'll see. Salas says they're due to rendezvous soon with another one of their ships, and in the meantime, since they got ran into and are damaged, they'll need food and quarters on Moya. Durka asks if the ship has any containment cells because they're transporting a very dangerous criminal, a female Nebari named Chiana. They put her in a cell, but refuse to say what crime she has committed. Dargo shows Durka and Salas to their quarters and mentions the DRDs are repairing their ship. Chiana begs for Crichton's help, saying he wouldn't consider what she did a crime, and asks for amnesty. Salas then activates a control in his forehead, oddly enough, that makes the collar she's wearing cause her pain and she collapses. Salas says to Zan that they eliminated the evil parts of Durka's mind with a process that they call mental cleansing. But it's so intricate that they have to place the subject in cryostasis, and in Durka's case took about 100 cycles to fix all of his evil parts. He says that Durka appreciates what was done to him, and they would have saved everyone on the Zebellion, but the crew refused to surrender. Dargo asks Salas how many warships it took to defeat a Peacekeeper command carrier, and Salas says that the Nebari have no warships, just one of their standard host vessels engaged it, like the one that's coming for them now to pick them up. Aaron tells Rygel to leave visitors alone, especially Durka. Aaron says that she was taught a lot about Durka, and Rygel says he knows everything he needs to. He faked his own death to save himself and left his crew for dead. Aaron tells him to ensure that Durka stays alive. She goes to see Durka, who tells her that he achieved nothing as a peacekeeper. He says the Nebari showed him a better way, and he survived the attack by faking his own death and left in an escape pod. Back at the prison cell, Crichton brings Chiana some food cubes to eat. He says that they're worried about her and asks why. She says she doesn't respect authority. She stole food when she was hungry, stowed away, and defended herself when necessary. She does say that she's never killed anybody, and among her people, you conform or you undergo mental cleansing. She says they think they're doing you a favor when they do that, and she says that she'd rather be dead than have that happen to her. Then she starts banging into the door, so Crichton goes in and restrains her, and she begs him not to let them take her. Crichton goes and talks to Durka about the cleansing when a little bomb slash hand grenade rolls in and explodes. Dargo and Aaron run in to investigate, just as Rygel hovers in, and Durka grabs him by the throat and then falls back down. Crichton grabs Rygel and asks what happened, kind of rather forcefully, since he almost got blown up by Rygel. And Rygel says that the evil was there, he saw it in Durka's face. Durka says he'll confine himself, but Darko says no, they'll confine Rygel instead, and locks Rygel in his quarters. Salas thought that Chiana may have had something to do with the explosion, but she didn't. She tries to seduce him, but he sets off her collar again. Dargo, meanwhile, has found explosives in Rygel's quarters and tells Crichton he's lucky that Rygel made the bomb incorrectly, or else they both would have been dead. Meanwhile, Salas tells Zan that he wants Rygel turned over to him when the ship arrives because he has flaws in his character. She says that even Rygel does not deserve mental cleansing, and Salas said even she could do with mental cleansing herself.
I sense a pattern.
Yeah, this guy's obsessed with mental cleansing, which we'll discuss here shortly. So, Chiana manages to escape from her cell and goes to Rygel's quarters. She says that he wants to be free to kill Durka, and she wants to get off of Moya, so they can make a deal. He says he can create a diversion, so she unties him, but instead he announces over his comm that Chiana has escaped. Crichton and Aaron rush to Rygel's quarters and find him covered up in a blanket in a corner, and he says that she's headed for the transport hangar. Everyone starts searching for her when Durka goes to Aaron and tells her that Chiana is capable of anything. Be careful. Meanwhile, Crichton finds Salas dead, lying on the ground in a pool of his own blood. Oops. Aaron and Rygel go to command, and Pilot says Chiana is very good at staying hidden. He can't find her on sensors. Durka walks in and asks if Salas is dead. Aaron approaches him when he suddenly attacks her and Rygel. Crichton tries to contact Dargo, but Durka's taking control of the comm system. He's tied up Rygel and says that Rygel undid the mental cleansing. Aaron wakes up and he says that he generally did feel guilty about his past, but now he can't think why. Aaron says that he murdered Salas, and he says that it's the simple things that you miss. What a guy. He tells the crew that he is in complete control of Moya, and if they don't leave her, they will die. Zan, meanwhile, has gotten down to Pilot's chamber, and Pilot says that Durka anticipates all his countermeasures. Dargo meets up with Crichton and goes up a shaft to get to command, but Durka was anticipating that and traps Dargo there. He attempts to starburst with Moya, but it fails. He says that he'll kill the hostages if they don't reactivate starburst immediately. Crichton finds Chiana in the cargo bay. Durka says that he will leave the comm channel open to show that he means business. He's heating up a tool and goes to burn Aaron when Rygel says he's pathetic. Durka says that he was going to save Rygel for bargaining, but now he'll just burn off his face instead. Rygel says he doesn't care anymore because Durka's a complete failure and tells him that Moya is pregnant so he can say hello to the Nebari when they arrive soon because they're not going anywhere. Chiana goes to attack Crichton, but he manages to stop her. She apologizes and says she's not used to trusting anyone. He suggests that she start trusting him. She wonders how Durka broke the cleansing and says maybe she'd be better on his side. Crichton convinces her that she's with them or on her own, so she asks what his plan is. He says she won't like it because he doesn't either, and it involves bait, i.e., Chiana. So we cut to Chiana jumping out in front of Durka, who's walking down a corridor, and tries to convince him to side with her. She asks where he got his directions to the baby that Moya is carrying because they reconfigured the ship's data to send him in the wrong direction. She leads him to a room where Crichton's waiting, but he's suspicious and pushes her in first. He shoots her and grazes her. Crichton jumps out and locks him out of the room. Durka then runs down to the hangar bay and makes it to the Nebari ship, planning to use its cannon as a weapon to kill Moya's baby. He powers it up, but Crichton has thrown one of Rygel's bombs, which explodes and somehow damages the cannon. Pilot regains control of the hangar doors and opens the outer bay doors. Unfortunately, they can't close the inner doors, so Crichton starts getting sucked out of the ship too. So Pilot starts shutting the inner doors, and Crichton just manages to get inside. Durka says he'll hunt Crichton down and kill him. Crichton says he should get in line and leaves him to the Nebari. Later, Rygel asks Aaron if Moya is still mad at him, and she says she's still in pain from her protecting her child. Aaron says that he handled himself well, though. Rygel says he beat Durka at his own game, and then Aaron reminds him that he just compared himself to a peacekeeper. And then finally, there's now the question of what to do with Chiana. As Zan tries to heal her wound on her arm, Crichton asks her how she is. Zan says she's a brat and leaves. Chiana asks if she gets to stay and thanks him for what Crichton did for her. Crichton says that Moya is preparing to starburst to get away from the Nebari, but warns her that they have rules. However, she says that when she sees all them following the rules, then so will she. Crichton warns her that he owes her, and the others won't be so easy to get on her side, so she's free to leave if she doesn't want to live by the rules. And as she's walking away, he asks her where she was when Salas died, and she just grins. The end. All right, some trivia for this show. The idea for this episode came while filming PK Tech Girl when the producers realized how effective a rematch between Rygel and Durka could be. And during that explosion scene in the bay, Ben Browder was accidentally set on fire, so the explosion was set off behind him, and he fell into frame. As he stated, we were on a 20-second delay, and it was a wide angle. I was totally obscured by the flame, and of course, I was smoking from my backside. Oops. Gigi Edgley, who plays Chiana, counted this episode as one of her favorites of the first season. Totally, she says, totally hands down, I think it's my favorite, probably because I was the most frightened and the most challenged and the most excited. Plus, she was wearing contact lenses, which gave her total tunnel vision. When the creators, Rockne O'Bannon, remembered that the ardent fans were up in arms that we had brought somebody else into the crew dynamic. He totally understands that. He also mentioned that they wanted to bring in a new young female character, but were preparing her not to stay, particularly if Gigi hadn't worked out. And the reasons they said for bringing her on were trying to improve the ratings even more. And he stated that the Sci Fi Channel was trying to find an audience and create a market. And of course, an attractive girl is easy to market. Yeah, well. Whether Chiana did kill Salas was intentionally left ambiguous, and Aban also noted that it was the ambiguity that was the point in terms of her character to make her potentially dangerous and someone we weren't sure of. It was something we were doing with all the characters, including Zan, who seemed the most benign of all. Every character in the show has a dark side. They're not necessarily evil, but they have the dark side and their secrets. And finally, the character of Chiana was originally going to be killed off in this episode. The scene where she was shot by Durka was changed, giving her a minor wound and beginning her stay on the show. David Kemper, one of the directors or producers, didn't really tell Edgley that she was going to die in the episode until the season-ending wrap party. So, surprise, we are going to kill you, but instead we decided not to, and that's why you're still here. All right, so kind of spoilers after the fact. If you hadn't already guessed, that Chiana is now here to stay. I kind of knew she was a regular when I started watching because she was already in the story and in the opening credits, but I didn't know where she had come into the series because up till now she wasn't here at all. So it's kind of fun to see her origin story. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, and as somebody who's completely unfamiliar with the crew, well, I guess I'll say the extra crew. I knew Ben Browder and a couple of the others, but I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know the future of the crew, and so this one totally caught me off guard. We've had a lot of characters introduced as in each episode that are usually either killed off or we leave the planet and move on. So it was kind of a surprise for me that at the very end they're like, "Oh, by the way, you're staying." And then at the very beginning of the next episode, we see her again, right? So it's kind of like, I just wasn't expecting it. It's kind of cool. Hopefully she'll mesh with the rest of the crew. Obviously she sticks around for a while, so that must be the case. But yeah, didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, because as I said before, I knew when she was there when I started, but yeah, it was kind of fun to see like her kind of origin, like she's fleshing out her character, like how she first appeared, how she got on the ship. So it's kind of interesting, and that they're trying kind of making her like ambiguous of, is she good, is she bad, did she kill Salas, did she not?
Yeah, and we've had quite a few, 15, 16 episodes now to get used to to get to know the rest of the crew, right? I mean, we don't know everything about them, but we've had insights throughout the episodes into each of the characters. And now we're kind of starting over with another blank slate character that we don't really know a whole lot about, except for what we get in this one episode. So it gives them a lot of places to go and play with the story as they kind of figure out where she fits.
Yeah, and it's not unheard of for a TV series to bring in new characters as it goes on. Sometimes it doesn't happen right in the middle of the season. Usually it's like at the end of a season or beginning of a season, they kind of add new people or people leave. But yeah, see if we bring new blood in, see what happens. See how the dynamic changes. And obviously, next episode they didn't do anything with her, so we'll see more of her, obviously. But yeah,
And I'm sure we'll get other new characters introduced as we go through the seasons. So, probably not the last time, but
yeah. As far as her race goes, the Nebari, I don't remember if they show up again or not, but they do seem like they could be like another potentially good adversary for the crew. And they do have a reason to come back. Chiana, the escaped prisoner, is still out there somewhere. And one of the people was killed, maybe by her, maybe not. I'm sure Durka's going to say, yeah, it was crazy. She killed everybody, and I escaped barely, and whatever. So, I mean, they could be looking for Moya now. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, actually, not only could they come back, but Durka could come back, right? I mean, we don't know for sure what his fate is. So, depending on how he spends it.
Yeah, if you want to make it the trifecta, the Durka trifecta, he can come back for the third time. I don't know. We'll see.
Could that be Revenge of the Durka or something like that? So.
Yeah, but yeah, so Salas and maybe the Nebari as a whole, not really sure, seem really obsessed with this mental cleansing concept because he apparently thinks everybody except for him, deserves mental cleansing, whether they're Nebari or not, right? I mean, the usual joke with sci-fi civilizations is that they're like monolith cultures. Everybody believes and acts the same way for millions of people, even though we only see like two or three people on screen. However, in this case, it seems like maybe that's their entire culture. That the Nebari, everybody must conform to whatever their standards of, I don't know, society, morals, whatever you want to call it. And if you don't, they'll make you.
Which is always an interesting concept, right? Because it always leads to the question of who gets to set those rules and morals. Something has to be the arbiter of acceptable behavior. To be the guideline, and we don't really get a glimpse yet in this society on what that is, other than anytime they have anything that deviates from Solace, at least his perceptions, then it's time for mental cleansing, which they may want to get a money back guarantee on that because it seems to have flaws. But there's a whole lot of gaps when how rigid or how fluid is their morals. Can anybody just say, "Oh, I don't like what you said. Mental cleansing for you"?
Yeah, because at first you're kind of thinking maybe it's kind of like how they deal with people that break the law, like criminals, I guess, for lack of a better word. Like anybody that does anything out of the normal society, if you rob, steal, then rather than imprison you, they just, rewire your brain so that you don't want to do those things. However, I don't know why he thought Zan needed to be cleansed. I don't think maybe she got a little mad at him or something. And Salas seems pretty like even keel, like not quite emotional a little bit. So maybe that's anybody that kind of gets a little emotional or whatever. It's like, oh, you're a candidate for mental cleansing. I don't know.
Yeah, I've got in my brain, probably completely unrelated, but I keep seeing the relationship to Demolition Man and the cryo prisons, right, where they're going to reprogram you while you're frozen. That's kind of my analogy here, is that we're just going to put you on ice. And because he mentioned how long it took for Durka to be reprogrammed, right, 100 cycles or whatever. So they'll just put him on ice and the cryo prison and have you reprogrammed.
Yeah, although as you said, it doesn't always work apparently. Durka apparently broke that conditioning after seeing Rygel, or after Rygel tried to kill him a couple times, or he got a hard knock on his head. I don't know, but so not really sure how effective that might be on non-Nebari people.
Yeah, they definitely glossed over. Was it the sight of Rygel? Was it something that happened to him in the meantime, or with all the attacks or whatever, the bomb, or was it just never really there and he was faking it the whole time? It's just kind of an interesting question.
And I guess the other kind of lingering thing is, did he or Chiana kill Salas? I'm probably going to side with it was him that killed Salas, so he could use it later if he had to, try to frame or use it to get away or get what he wants, from the ship from the crew.
Yeah, I went the Durka route too, although a lot of that comes from China being a main character, or not one part of the crew going forward, and you kind of question, is that something that our crew member would have done? But at the same time, I like the fact that they left it ambiguous, and it's up to us to try to figure that out going forward, if it even matters, if they ever bring it back up.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how they use Chiana later. To see if they try to play off her, is she homicidal or a sociopath or whatever, a free spirit, whatever, quote unquote, whatever. So we'll see if they try and build it up later, since they did leave it kind of open-ended, as their creators had said in the trivia comments that, we wanted to leave it open, so, we're not really sure. Is she good, bad? Who knows? But, we'll find out. I guess the kind of the main plot points or main character development points seem to be like Durka, apart from Chiana being introduced, but we didn't know that at the time, is Durka and his relationship with both Rygel and Aaron, actually. We know about Rygel and the torturing and stuff, but for Aaron, I guess probably in the old, I think in the PK Tech Girl, if I remember right, she was saying something about Durka. I can't remember, that he was like an accomplished peacekeeper or whatever. And here again, she even keeps talking about that when she's talking with Durka, she's saying how, she admired him. He was a topic of study in Peacekeeper Academy. And he's kind of like, yeah, that's nice, whatever. He kind of just totally brushed her off, like, I don't care about that crap. And she kind of obviously eventually loses her hero worship at the end of the episode, because, he's knocked her out, he's tried to kill her, he's tried to kill the crew. So she does kind of finally realize what kind of person Durka really is.
Yeah, it's a nice reminder that our idols rarely live up to the image we have of them. And I think it's also a good spot to kind of show us even further that Erin's moving further away from the peacekeeper mentality, right? I mean, the more she's around the crew and the more her relationships form there, she's less. I mean, she's still a peacekeeper and has her militaristic tendencies, but her ideals and moral compass seems to be shifting a little bit as we go through the season.
Yeah, because what we've seen of other peacekeepers that we've encountered, obviously we've seen, Krace and Durga, but there's been other people, like most of them seem to be kind of on like the Durka track, like the full of themselves. I don't know what I'm gonna call it, evil, but like, cruel, straightforward, brutish. The only people we have seen that's been kind of not that way has been like, like the tech side, like the tech girl from PK Tech Girl. She was kind of nice and congenial compared to everybody else. So yeah, I mean, maybe it's finally rubbing off on her, or maybe she wasn't quite that way, because I guess she was a relatively new peacekeeper. I'm not really how old she is or how long she's been a peacekeeper, outside of the training classes and stuff. But yeah, she's finally losing, I guess, that brutish charge forward, and, mess everybody up, peacekeeper mentality, and now is kind of realizing, yeah, maybe that's not exactly the best thing I could have done, probably.
Well, and seeing the shades of gray instead of black and white, that's it seems to be a big thing in their culture, is black and white. It's either this or that, and she's kind of having to live on that edge and see that there's places in between.
And Rigel, once again, is showing that he's got courage and a backbone. The last couple episodes, they've been building on that, where he's not exactly the conniving cheat, looking for the easy way out kind of person. Although he is sometimes with that all those gaming stuff he was doing in the other episodes with people. But
Well, he's using that to his advantage, not hiding behind it. So
right, not trying to scheme or steal things from people necessarily. Right, he's using it for a reason. So this time he's standing up to Durka. This time he's like taunting and insulting him, saying that was something he should have done back when he was a prisoner for 130 cycles, I think he said, way back whenever. And he even ends up to Chiana too. He plays her. She comes in saying, "Hey, I want to get off the ship. You want to kill Durka? Hey, we can make a deal." And as soon as she lets him out of his restraints, rather than do what she wants, he immediately calms the rest of the crew and tells everybody that she escaped.
yeah, that one surprised me because I half expected him to go along with her at least for the first part of the thing, but he immediately. I mean, he didn't even get fully untied before he's alerting the crew. So I thought that was kind of neat.
Yes, I'm not sure if he took Aaron's advice to heart about not messing with Durka anymore. Maybe because he realized he almost killed Crichton, so maybe that was a way of, or at least he didn't have another idea what to do. Or he finally just realized, okay, fine, I'm not gonna deal with him. Maybe the Nebari will deal with him or something. I don't know. I guess another little kind of funny thing that I caught when I was watching the show was when Ben Browder in the trivia said that he accidentally got caught on fire during that explosion scene. I did actually see that in the landing bay when, or not, actually that was before that. Never mind, sorry. When Durka is shooting at him in the landing bay, he dies behind some crates that are on the floor, like stacked up on the, I guess making like a little barrier. And when he goes over the crates, you can briefly see like some kind of mats or maybe cardboard boxes that they use when you're jumping on stuff. You can see him kind of land on that before they cut away. So I thought that kind of funny.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody wasn't quite paying attention to the cut on that one.
Yeah, because you can see like the mats kind of like scrunch up when he goes over the corner. So if he was landing on a hard metal floor, that wouldn't happen. So I was like, ooh, continuity error.
Well, you never know. Moya could just have mats laying around just in case.
Yeah, always behind these big wall of crates, you need to have a mat because if you're gonna jump over the wall of crates, you want a soft landing. That's how it works.
Well, actually, that was Rygel's nap corner. They just kind of fell into it. So
Yeah, he's got plenty of little hidey holes on the ship, so he's got his little sleeping bag laying around somewhere. All right, any other comments or I know we both liked the story. We thought it was pretty good.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Like we said, this had some good character growth, which is always a kind of a hallmark of a good episode, I think, and a new character, new crew member. So a lot more than I actually expected out of a episode 13 pretty much mid season episode. So
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more of her in the next episode.
or not. Well, let's see.
Oh, and actually, apparently I said it was episode 15 and 16, but our recap I said 13 and 14. So really, wrong. Sorry. Add one. We're on 15 and 16.
Now I'm really confused. I hope I watched the right one.
That's what you get when you copy and paste the document each week and forget to change the episode numbers. But yeah, it's definitely 15 and 16 we watched because I had it up at the top, but not at the bottom. So sorry, everybody, if we confused you. It's 15 and 16.
If we confused you, it's just because we're confused. So
Yeah.
it's okay.
Plus it'll be the episode title and descriptions all over the place anyway. So by the time you get to this point, you'll be like, "Why are you talking about that? It says 15 and 16." So hey, whatever. But a little behind the
Yeah,
scenes,
yeah,
how the sausage is made, kind of thing. So
yeah. And speaking of episode 16, let's jump into a human reaction. So we open with Zan and Chiana arguing about something that Chiana took from Zan's quarters, while Crichton is in the background leaving a message for his dad. And spoiler alert, while we do get some carryover of Chiana from the last episode, this is about it. Um, so we move on. Pilot contacts Crichton and tells him that to go to command immediately. Moya has found a wormhole that just appeared right in front of them, and as they're studying the wormhole, they see through the wormhole a planet, which Crichton identifies as Earth. Then Crichton prepares to launch Farscape 1, and Erin says she can't go with him because she's not certain that she'll belong there. Zan says that the trip could kill him because it's unstable, but he says he has to do it because it might be Earth, which he just said it was, so we can move on. Crichton tells Dargo that he hopes he'll get to see his son someday, and everyone gets a little choked up. Crichton tells Rygel that he's going to leave all of his stuff and give it to Aaron, but Rygel realizes it's a joke. Aaron peeks around the corner and he says his goodbyes. Crichton gets to the mouth of the wormhole but hesitates, and Dargo calms him and persuades him to go in despite his fears. Crichton does, and Pilot loses him from sensors. Crichton crash lands on the Australian coast, where he asks the woman who's running on the beach where he is, just as the military come and knock him out with a tranquilizer dart. We jump to a military base where a man named Wilson is questioning Crichton in a cell. They bring in different foreigners, thinking that the translator microbes in Crichton's brain are in fact an alien virus, and they have Crichton translate what each of the different foreigners are saying. Crichton eventually responds that he won't play any more games, so Wilson leaves. Later, he asks the guard, Cobb, when he'll get out. Cobb says he doesn't know, so Crichton asks to read the paper, only to find out what's happened in the 7 months that he's been gone. But when he asks Cobb who won the Super Bowl, Cobb doesn't know. Eventually, Crichton's dad, Jack, comes in and says he wants to see his son. John asks him to get him out of there, and his dad asks what happened on his 10th birthday, checking to see if he's who he says he is. John said his dad was late again because they held him at Houston for tests. But then he woke him up at 4 o'clock in the morning just to go fishing. Jack hugs his son, and John asks what's going on, since this is far from the normal recovery procedure. Jack says that nothing's been the same since he left, and the wormhole stayed open. John asks his dad to get him out of there, and he says he will. Eventually, the two of them are walking along the beach, and John says that Wilton would not have just let him go. His dad shows him a van with 2 women are watching them, and points out some other people kind of around the beach that are watching them also. He says that Wilson wants him to find out if he really is his son and everything about the wormhole and what's on the other side. They return to the base where John tells one of the workmen that he's doing something wrong. Then he recognizes him as somebody he's met before. The base goes on alert as a transport pod has come through the wormhole, and John tells them not to fire since it has no weapons. We cut to the containment cell on the base with Aaron, Dargo, and Rygel inside. Aaron says the Earth disappeared when he went through the wormhole. Rygel says that it was her idea to go after him, and she says she just wanted to get a closer look, but then the wormhole sucked her in. Wilson wants to know what they're saying, since the other humans can't understand because they don't have the translator microbes. John lets them know that they're scared. Rygel asks why they're treating him like this, to which John replies that they're freaking out, but he says he'll take care of them. Rygel complains that he doesn't feel well, and John says it's because of the tranquilizers that they shot him with. John asks his father what's going on and notices that all the magazines are 7 months old. They must not want him to know anything. He says that they trust the others a lot more than Wilson, that the crew's his friends. A man calls him to the medical bay where they find Rygel cut open and dead. John has a go at Wilson and tells Aaron and Dargo that the official word is that Rygel died from allergic reaction to tranquilizers. However, he says that he thinks they killed Rygel, and Dargo says they cut him open to study him. Dargo says that when they come for him, he'll fight. Aaron says that even the peacekeepers wouldn't kill a prisoner to study them, and just tells John to go. Jack then tells John that it was naive to think that he could protect them, and John says that he's going to make Wilson understand. Jack asks if he's willing to die for those creatures, and John says he gave them his word. He goes to the medical room where he finds a man on the ground. Aaron appears and asks if she killed the man, to which John says no. He says he's on her side and she has to trust him. She says they took Dargo, but she was ready when they came for her. John and Aaron find Cobb, and they ask him where Dargo was taken. Cobb says he was flown to another base, and John takes his gun and knocks him out, for Rygel. They leave, and Aaron's fascinated by the rain and says she likes it. They go to a house where Jack and John spent some time last year, but Aaron doesn't trust that his dad told him where it was. They go in and drink some beer, which Aaron says tastes like Philip nectar. John apologizes for getting her here and stuck on Moya. He looks out the window, and Aaron says he was right. Earth is actually very beautiful. She says they'll have to kill her to capture her, and he says he knows and rests his head on her shoulder. They then kiss. Jump cut to the next morning where Aaron tells John to get out of bed. Aaron's found an uninhabited place to hide, but there's a knock on the door. It's Jack, and Aaron holds a gun to him. She wants John to search him, but he refuses. Jack says he talked to everyone he knows, but no one will help them. Dargo is on his way to a military warehouse, and the official word is that they never existed. He tells them that they have to get out of town. He'll cover for them. He says goodbye, and Aaron says something apparently heartfelt that he understands the emotion of, if not the content, and says, "Thank you, Aaron's son." Aaron and John walk down the street when John sees the girl who was at the beach. He asks the man at the newsstand why all the magazines are 7 months old, but then he recognizes the man as being from the beach the other day also, and says he used to ride his bike past the man's house in the 5th grade. As he thinks about it, he knows everyone around him, and he pulls his gun on Aaron. Every place that he's been so far, he's been to in the past. He goes into a pool hall that's just the way he remembers it, and he knows all the people there too. He's been in the men's room before, but never the ladies' room, so he kicks open the door to reveal an energy barrier. John then goes back to talk to his dad at the military base, who says he did very well. Everything here was a physical recreation from his memory. He's not his father, but the others are real. They were investigating the wormhole, and they were used too. Durka and Rygel are locked up, and Rygel says that he was treated like royalty. Jack, the ancient, says they needed a human reaction, and there's your episode title.
Yep.
He,
Product placement right there.
yeah, you got to get it in somewhere. He apologizes, but says that John had to believe everything. The ancients only have enough power to transport their race one last time, and they wanted to know how they'd be received if they went to Earth. John goes through a door where there's a hive of aliens. Jack says that they only want to cohabitate on the planet while they land and replenish their hive. The ancients have stories of a world that will welcome them, and they had to know if the humans were that world and would welcome them or if they would fight. He apologizes for taking John's dad's form, and John asks to see what he really looks like. Surrounded by light, he transforms to his true form and says that the highest form of life on the planet is often the most destructive, and that they think humans would kill them. He says that they will continue searching for a home, and John says so will he. The ancient returns Jack's good luck charm, which John gave him earlier in the episode, and says maybe they'll meet again one day. A little trivia about this episode. Dave Esley built and designed the ancients. He said, they were huge. The great big pod things were each about 9 foot long. The set was just a big concrete bunker, so these 3 creatures were really the set. The heads were silicon and full of lights. He also revealed that the eyes of the creatures were inspired by plasma ball lights found in many homes and offices. The insect alien was a rod puppet, and its controls were removed digitally in post-production. Also, the 3 men who were standing in the men's bathroom scene were played by Anthony Simcoe, out of makeup, episode director Rowan Woods, and production designer Ricky Ayers. Claudia Black was unaware of the cameos until Ben Browder informed her. Chiana appears only briefly in the opening scene due to the fact that the writers hadn't yet figured out what to do with her yet. And the scene showing the morning after with Crichton in bed was not included in the US version, leaving the result of the night before more ambiguous. However, a later piece of dialogue in Mind the Baby confirms that John and Aaron had intimate relations. Thoughts, Eric?
Yeah, kind of like what we said earlier. This is also a great episode. I loved it. The story was well done. I'll have some little quibbles here and there, but overall the story was great. The acting was great also. And they did have you going for close to maybe half to more than a third, I guess, of the episode that he really was on Earth. Although when he kept mentioning all the papers and magazines were 7 months old, I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. But then when we obviously saw Rygel's corpse, then I knew for sure that this was some kind of illusion or fake or whatever because, well, I shouldn't. To me, yes, because I knew obviously Rygel was past this episode, and probably even if I didn't realize that, I probably wouldn't think they would kill off a character in the first season. And then I guess keeping with my suspicions, John keep asking an Australian soldier who won the Super Bowl. Okay, no problem with that because why would he care? He's Australian, right? So.
Yeah, I agree. Though I wouldn't put past captors to limit your knowledge to the 7 months. To kind of putting you in a familiar time frame and not letting you have extra information. I kind of associate that with like the Steve Rogers waking up and them playing the old baseball game on the radio in the background because they're trying to put you in a comfortable scenario. As far as did it work tricking you? I think I always suspected that it wasn't going to be Earth Prime, to kind of put a label on the real Earth, right? But I did go through the normal sci-fi scenarios of is it an alternate timeline? Is it going to get backed up and erased? Is it and I thought they could have done a lot of fun stuff with alternate timeline stuff or alternate reality, but it kind of went the Q route, which is it works.
Yeah, or maybe like somehow John and Aaron would escape back to the pod or the Moya's transport pod, go back through the wormhole, and somehow go back in time, and then they would show up before or right after he left or something, and then Rygel's still alive or something. That was kind of
Right.
in the back of my head too. Of okay, there's a sci-fi trope, right? Maybe that they're pulling that one off.
Yeah, because I agree with you. The killing of Rygel, obviously we knew they weren't going to do that, but it could have. There's so many ways they could have undone it and still had the place be real. That I was kind of playing with it for a little while until we actually got the reveal, which I kind of find interesting because it felt like, and this is not a knock because I enjoyed the story, but it felt like they spent so much time on the setup that when he finally had the realization and you had the reveal of the aliens, it felt very rushed, right? I almost would have liked this episode to be another 30 minutes just because there's so much on the back end they could have done with the aliens that they just didn't have time for because they did such a good job setting up the first part.
Yeah, or maybe even make it like a two-parter, which there will be two-parters later, if I remember. But yeah, maybe have everything be believable, and then maybe at the end of the first act, or first, not first act, first episode, they come in when like Rygel's dead. Oh my God, and then cut next episode, what's gonna happen, right? So, yeah, but yeah, it was a little kind of like, okay, we all that touchy-feely. Okay, he's back on Earth. Oh, something's going wrong. Oh, look, aliens, and then oh, it's all just a dream.
Yeah,
That's all just a dream. Not really, but
yeah, and that's not a knock because, like I said, I really liked it.
Mhm.
I liked it so much I would have liked it to be more.
Yeah, and then because they do spend probably several minutes in the opening where John's getting ready to leave, and if that's his final time, he's saying goodbye to everybody, to each person except for Chiana because she's gone. Um, but
But she was there. That's an interesting point because
oh, was
she
he?
was
Okay.
in well, she was in the scene with Zan, and then when they say goodbyes, they don't even mention her. She just kind of was in a room, I guess. So,
Yeah, and I guess really didn't really have much to say to her other than like, yeah, hey, good luck, right? But everything he was saying
and that may have been a filming issue, right? They may have already had this part filmed, and then they brought her back just to do the opening part. Who knows? So.
yeah, but I mean, the way he was basically telling everybody maybe his final goodbyes was really touching. I mean, you really believed or could believe that if they were wrapping up the series at episode 16 that okay, thanks a lot everybody, really appreciate, good luck with everything, see ya.
Yeah, yeah. They've come a long way from the antagonistic relationships they had in the beginning, right? Now we're actually a caring, family. It's not quite the word, but dysfunctional family.
Yeah, because Crichton's gone and they know where he went, but then they still kind of came to see was he okay or not into Earth. They got pulled in by accident, they said, but that little trope,
If you believe Aaron, right?
yeah, well,
So
that little trope of, well, he's gone, see ya, at least we're done with that, hopefully, right? So, and I guess unfortunately or stereotypically or whatever, this is how Earth's various militaries and politicians would react to a human coming back from space for months with alien technology and then later real live aliens. Lock them up, study them, and dissect them. I mean, I hate to think that it's a stereotype, but I think that's pretty much what any kind of military on this planet would do. They would want to dissect the technology and the creatures, regardless of whether that's a good idea or not, just because that's how humans are, unfortunately.
yeah, I mean, especially if you think about like the one of the first things they did was do a health check on him and see he's got alien bacteria in him, and while they're beneficial, and John knows that he's lived with them for months at this point. In a reality, they're gonna isolate that person and study them a lot longer in just a couple days before they allow somebody in without a containment suit. That was one of the I realized the story had to move faster, but it was kind of interesting to see them let his dad barge in when with no containment. So
Mhm. And even back in the second episode of the series, I remember that when John has the same kind of John's alien on another planet, and then Dargo shows up, he's like, "Yeah, this military is going to do, going to take us back and like dissect us." So it's like, yeah, that's just the military mindset. Everything's a potential enemy. Analyze, learn, that kind of thing. So. And I guess this time we do finally see indirectly that Aaron and Crichton finally let their feelings go all the way. We don't obviously see anything because it's a family TV show, probably 8 o'clock Fridays on Sci-Fi, so they're not going to go that crazy. But apparently that happens, and since the agents say that the rest of the crew was real, so obviously this really happened. So I'll be curious to see now that stuff's happened, how that developed their relationship in future episodes.
yeah, as we kind of mentioned earlier, probably the only one of the, and I'm not going to call it a nitpick because I do appreciate where they spent the time, but I was kind of expecting there to be a little more shown with the crew getting reunited on Moya, right? And instead we get an abrupt episode ending without actually seeing them come back together and what happens after the wormhole. So it'll be interesting to see where that gets picked up and moved forward once they're back on board.
Yeah, because that's some of the questions I have with the episode in general of not the pacing necessarily, but kind of like the plot, like what was real, what wasn't. Obviously, what Crichton was experiencing on quote unquote Earth was fake, 'cause it's all his memories. But when did the aliens find out about Crichton? Did they know he was there before and put the wormhole in front of the ship to draw them to it, or was all that fake? Was the wormhole not even there? It was all in the memories already.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting question of how much can they physically. Was it something that physically looked like a wormhole but wasn't really a wormhole? Because we're guessing they don't have the power to actually create a wormhole, although they do have the ability to travel, right? So, but everything that you see is a physical manifestation of things they got from Crichton's brain. So they had to know where it was to start with to make the wormhole. So yeah, we don't really see where they first started paying attention to him at.
Yeah, so if that was true, that they put the wormhole in front of the ship, then Crichton went in, started having his recreation. Then when Aaron and them came up, they got pulled in, so now they're part of it. Whereas Moya, Pilot, Zan, and Chiana aren't because they didn't go into the thing. That could be. Now I'm thinking about it. But then, yeah, obviously, then it's over. So are they gonna get back on Farscape One and the pod and then leave the wormhole, quote unquote, and then go back to the ship? I guess.
Yeah, we were just kind of left with how did they get back? How did it end? That was very. They left you hanging, which is kind of an interesting way to do it. I think it also makes the aliens kind of jerks because they obviously knew how to get to Earth and didn't share it. They just were like, well, Earth's not for us. See you later, and they split. So would have been nice to share some of the information, the maps or something. So.
Hmm.
But then we have too short of a show, so I get it. They looked into the future and saw that we needed more episodes. So
Yeah, right. And it's only 45 minutes. You want to spend time on the drama, not the like 5 minutes of, well, we're back. That was weird. And Zan and them are like, where were you? Well, let me see, so yeah, fine, we know. So,
I actually picture that's how they end every episode. Well, we're back. That was weird, and then they walk off.
right. Wow, that was strange. Let's hope we never see those again. Yeah, yeah. Which who knows? I mean, it's nice to see kind of friendly aliens. They weren't hostile, so not everybody that they meet in this uncharted territory is out to kill them or exploit them or use them. Although I guess you could say they were kind of using them to find out if Earth was a place they could go. But at least they weren't going to go to take over the Earth. Well, so they say. I mean, they seem friendly. Jack, quote unquote, Jack, kind of was pretty much playing the part of Crichton's dad that we saw in the first episode to a T. He was caring, nice, kind. He even at the end when he reveals himself was still benevolent and nice and wasn't lording his power or abusing anything. He was just hey, this is how we learn. We want to make sure we have this prophecy or whatever you want to call it that we're going to find someone that will take us to where we want to go. It just didn't seem like it was this time.
Yeah, but to counter that, they also played the part of the bad guys and the military and the people who, while it didn't really happen, they made John think that they killed and cut up Rygel. So, I mean, they were the good guys, but they were the bad guys. The aliens were both parts in this episode.
Yeah, it was kind of like, what kind of simulation is this? It's kind of like a holodeck kind of thing. Like they're mining Crichton's memories for people, and I guess as they set up this creation or whatever, it's either got a mind of its own or just runs or however it works. Like a program or well, I'm thinking like holodeck program, but like Star Trek, but whatever. However it works, did they kind of pull out of Crichton's memories eventually that yeah, probably the military is gonna want to study, dissect, and not trust aliens, and then that's how the thing unfolded based on his subconscious or his memories or whatever, or what. But yeah.
And were all the NPCs other aliens?
Good point. Yeah, would they be playing the part of it? Because obviously there were, if there's a whole race of people, a race of beings, we saw like three or four giant little pods, so they must be inside, whether they're miniaturized or just a DNA kind of thing or whatever. So yeah, I mean, who knows? Interesting.
I kind of picture this, this. You can say this for the whole season, right? We're kind of doing the first season of Star Trek. We've got to set up all the alien races. Some of them we can come back to, some of them we don't. But we're kind of world building still, so it's kind of neat to have all these things that you could come back to at any point. So
Yeah, because it's so new and it's a different show and a different universe kind of thing that pretty much they can get away with anything. They can just say this alien can do these things because we say so because it's the first time we're seeing them. We don't know anything about them, so hey.
yeah, and if they show up again, we've got an established person we could reuse.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if they do show up later or not. I can't remember.
These may not. I'm just saying in general. That's kind of the beauty of it. Is that any of these people, if they click, you can just bring them back anytime you want to.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff with wormholes later, obviously, because that's kind of the whole point of why we're here where we are. So, we'll see if they come back later or if it's somebody else. And it was kind of fun, I guess, seeing Crichton figure out that it was all his memories, not reality. Which it starts figuring out that everybody he sees is people he knew, whether personally, like I drove past your house in the fifth grade all the time, or Wilson and Cobb, who he knew from the program, and then just people in general. Like I guess they're just pulling people's pictures out of your head of if you're walking like coworkers or neighbors or friends or just people you walk past on the street, if you at least had in your memory of kind of what they kind of vaguely look like, and that you can populate that world with people, right? So it's kind of fun for him to figure out that these are all people from his past, not present. And then that's probably why everything was 7 months old, because he has no knowledge of what happened after he left. Therefore, why would the aliens to set it up that way?
right, and of course it makes for the fun reveal when the matrix glitches and you have the same person repeated. So
And of course, it's fun because I guess Crichton's never been in a woman's restroom in his life, so they couldn't pull that from him, or at least not that woman's restroom in the pool hall.
yeah, I think I would have had fun with that scene and just had it be like the same as the men's restroom, including the same three guys standing there.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and then it's like, wait a minute, that's not possible. But yeah, so overall, yeah, it was a pretty good episode.
yeah, I think we definitely had good ones. Both of these, like as we said, kind of at the top, these were good mid-season towards the end of the season, I guess. Downhill, yeah, on the upswing episodes, and we get a little bit of world building, and we get a little bit of new characters. So pluses.
Yeah, and hopefully now the writers have had a episode off, however long it takes to film one of those, like a week or two. So now maybe next episode they'll have more Chiana. We'll find out. Speaking of which, next time, and these are labeled correctly from our previous conversation, will be season one, episode 17, Through the Looking Glass, and season one, episode 18, A Bug's Life. If you want to play guess the episodes, I hope that Through the Looking Glass isn't like a reference to like Mirror Mirror, Star Trek, things like that, where we're gonna have like an alternate reality of where the crew's evil or something. I hope not.
It's definitely gonna be Alice in Wonderland themed. That's my guess.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like some kind of Alice, like fantasy, psychedelic, whatever. We'll see. I don't know. I kind of got that vibe off the title. And then A Bug's Life.
Was co-produced by Pixar, right?
Yeah, right. That was a movie from the 90s from Pixar, I think 90s, which would be when this episode was around when it's filmed. So who knows? But the only bugs we've seen so far were those was it the Drac from the one episode where they look like the crew and then they breed and they leave. I don't think they're coming
Yeah.
back. I haven't seen this. I don't know, but they weren't really that interesting before, so hopefully it's not them again.
Now, hopefully, we get a different set of bugs. Maybe this is a different bug themed planet.
Yeah, it's a big universe. There could be lots of different bugs out there that are sentient and whatever. Who knows? All right, so that's your homework for next time, episode 17 and 18, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.